Today we're going to be talking about the Stanley Cup Finals, the NHL Stanley Cup Finals, by the way, the Vegas Golden Knights versus the Florida Panthers. So I'm excited to talk about this. It's been a little bit since I did a long form video. So if you haven't checked out my shorts, I do quite a few shorts pretty much every day, just reviewing different news in the hockey scene and everything. And my goal is to do some more long form video this summer, just to stay on top of it, because I got a lot of things I want to talk about. Like, I want to talk about how awesome the St. Louis rebuild, and what the Washington Capitals are doing, what are the Pittsburgh Penguins doing with their new GM Kyle Dubas, and now what the direction Toronto Maple Leafs should be doing with their new general manager as well. So follow along for the journey. So let's jump right into the Florida Panthers and the Vegas Golden Knights Stanley Cup Finals. Do a quick review, by the way. Let's start with the Vegas Golden Knights. We have Vegas. By the way, if you picked Vegas, you said, okay, hey, they're the top team in the Western Conference, you would get it right. And they would be, you say, oh, the top team in the Western Conference is, they're going to go to the Stanley Cup Finals. They're the top team in the Western Conference. So why wouldn't they go? Well, here's an example right here, right? So Vegas beats the second wild card Winnipeg Jets. Great goaltending, but just couldn't get the scoring going. That's why Vegas won 4-1. Oilers, it's the same old song and dance. Got goal scoring. McDavid was a little bit slow. Draisaitl was on fire. I think he had like 13 goals in just the 2 rounds, which is crazy. I think he still leads the NHL, by the way, in goals, and he was out 2 rounds ago. And they, of course, they finished second in their division. And Vegas beat them 4-2. I mean, Aiden Hill's just been standing on his head. And then you have against the Dallas Stars. Dallas Stars had a good fight. They knocking out the Minnesota Wild and then beating the Seattle Kraken. But unfortunately, in this matchup, Aiden Hill was on fire. Ottinger just didn't pull out the stops. I thought the team played really good, but Ottinger just didn't bring the goaltending, in my opinion. And I mean, let's be frank. That's 6-0 loss by Dallas in Game 6. I mean, that was just brutal. I mean, I'm a Dallas fan, so I was really bummed about that. But my wife is a Vegas fan, so she was way more happy about that. And of course, well, have you seen? I'll tell you about our matchups at the end and see who's rooting for who. So. And of course, and Vegas taking it to the finals in the Western Conference. So let's and the reason I'm starting with Vegas, I want to start off with some of their stats. So let's jump over to some of their stats right now, just to see what they're doing. I mean, Jack Eichel has done the great thing. So Jack Eichel got traded from the Buffalo Sabres. Was it not a year ago? 2 years ago. He got traded for Alex Tuch, Peyton Krebs, and a first-round pick and a second-round pick, I think it was. And Jack Eichel coming over, everyone was like, this is Jack Eichel's first time in the playoffs. They missed it last year. I know he was injured last year with a hand injury. So this is his first time in the Stanley Cup Finals. And by the way, so the crazy thing is that there's the McDavid Eichel draft where everyone was tanking for McDavid, and Buffalo got the consolation prize of Jack Eichel. Oh no, you don't get McDavid, you only get Eichel. I mean, he was only one of the best Hobie Baker winners of this decade, right? And Hobie Baker, by the way, is the best college player of the season. So Jack Eichel is on fire. Look at this, over a point per game. Playing very well, and he's just on fire. He's actually, I think he's up for third in Conn Smythe. They're currently voting. He's doing very well. Then, of course, you have your normal Vegas stars that have been around for a little longer. Jonathan Marchessault had 9 goals, by the way. 9 goals. This is not 9 goals in the playoffs. This is 9 goals in 2 rounds. He scored 0 goals in the first round, which is crazy. And so he's just on fire. I think he actually has some Conn Smythe votes as well. So we'll see if he ends up passing Jack Eichel. But again, Jack Eichel's just playing on fire. I'm very impressed with it. And honestly, look at Jack Eichel's shooting percentage is a little bit low. So speaking of high shooting percentage, holy crap, 27-25. By the way, in the regular season, 34 point. Jesus, that is wild. So by the way, if you don't know, about 12 to 14% is pretty normal for a shot percentage in the NHL for the regular season. So in the playoffs, these are very high. These are very good. So I'm very happy. I mean, you can see there's people just pulling out the stops. I mean, these are great point totals. Look at this. Chandler Stephenson, great center depth right there. Carlson putting up the goals, 10 goals. He's actually leading the Golden Knights. Ivan Barbashev, great trade from the St. Louis Blues. They actually so Vegas traded away their 2021 pick that their first round pick. It was James Dean or something like that. They traded their first round pick that the prospect that they had picked. So, and Mark Stone, after having all that rest all year. We know he has lots of back issues and everything, a lot of injury issues. But Mark Stone has been playing very well, so good for him. Good for them, just playing phenomenal. And let's talk about the real star. I want to just jump down to Aiden Hill right here. Aiden Hill with a 2.07 goals against average. Laurent Brossoit did a phenomenal job, but Aiden Hill is on fire. Look at this. He's got a goals against average, one whole goals against average less than Laurent Brossoit. Their records are phenomenal. Look at the save percentage is at .937, and Laurent Brossoit played well. He played well against the Jets, especially because the Jets were his former team at one point. So he did what he needed to do. And Aiden Hill, by the way, who's been known as more of a journeyman, more of a younger journeyman, let's say. He's actually one of my other favorite teams, the San Jose Sharks. And they, by the way, they only had to trade. They traded for Aiden Hill at the trade deadline, and they only had to give away a 4th-round pick. And now look at, he is on fire and just taking him. That's all you need is a hot goalie. And speaking of hot goalies, we probably can jump over to the Florida Panthers at this point because they got themselves a hot goalie. So let's go through their path real quick. Their path right here. Now, unlike the Vegas Golden Knights, if they were number 1 in the Western Conference, if you said, hey, the worst team in the playoffs that just barely snuck into the playoffs, by the way, if you don't know, the Pittsburgh Penguins had beaten the Chicago Blackhawks later in the season, they lost the game 5-2 to the Chicago Blackhawks, who finished like third in the league, third worst in the league. If Pittsburgh had beaten Chicago, Florida would not have gotten to the playoffs, and we would have seen a Pittsburgh-Boston matchup instead. But instead, Florida, they did what they needed to do, and they just snuck in, just hardly snuck in. And then you have Florida taking on the best regular team ever. By the way, the best regular team in points percentage and wins, right? So they had the most wins of any NHL team ever. They had the highest win percentage of any NHL team ever. And so they take down the Boston Bruins, and you're like, oh my goodness, how is this not just an eighth seed, this barely snuck into the playoffs, 8th seed. Which if you see in that perspective, you're like, oh, what the heck? How did Boston lose? But you gotta remind, Florida won the President's Trophy last year, right? So they won it last year. Boston won it this year. So there is good parts there. But remember when they had the President's Trophy and they lost in the second round of Tampa Bay Lightning last year, they had a huge shakeup. They traded the highest scoring highest assists by a left winger in Jonathan Huberdeau. They traded an amazing defenseman, Mackenzie Weegar, a first, a second, and Cole Swindle for Matthew Tkachuk, right? Matthew Tkachuk wanted out of Calgary, so Florida picked him up and said, "Hey, we want to run on you, and I want a good bet. We're gonna bet on you." And I think they signed like a $10 million deal for eight years, and it was the first sign and trade. So he had signed the deal with the Calgary Flames so that they can get that 8th year, and then traded him to the Florida Panthers. So supposedly it was the first sign and trade as opposed to trade then sign. So that's where we're at right there. So the Florida Panthers the huge trade knocked Boston off, which was, by the way, was crazy in the first. We're like, okay, well, Florida, they play tough. They really did. But Toronto, they're a way more skilled team. They should take care of this. Their goaltending better. No, Florida comes out, beats them 3 in a row, and then Toronto's like, oh, we got to try. And by the way, once it's 3-0 in the whole playoffs of the NHL, if it's 3-0, only 4 times has it been done where a team who's down 3-0 has come back to win that series. Only 4 times. So similar to what happened with Dallas going down 3-0 to Vegas, the chances are so low. And similar with Florida, I wanted Toronto to win. I was like, man, I'm glad they got out of the first round. Hopefully they can go on a deeper run. And they had a gentleman's sweep, losing 4-1 in the series. But well, I'm excited to see what the shakeup looks like there. And then so Florida moves on. They versus the Canes, right? We're like, oh man, the Canes. They are great. They're always in the playoffs for the last several years. This is their time to break out. Florida, you had a good run, but there's no way they're going to beat the Canes. They sweep them. I don't know if you watched this series. They sweep them, and the Canes. and I will give the Canes a little bit of a break. They played well. Mind you, Canes played against a tough Islanders team. It's a real shutdown offense. They really did really well against the New Jersey Devils, but their New Jersey Devils are young, and they're probably pretty tired from versus New York. But the problem with the Canes is they didn't have Aho and they didn't have Pacioretty. Their left side was really weak in that sense. So when Florida came in, they all they had to do was play good goaltending with Bobrovsky. Again, Bobrovsky, holy smoke! I think he's got like a 20 goals saved above expected if you look at different metrics, and that's so goals saved above expected to say, hey, if you took the average goalie, they wouldn't save this. So that means there's 20 more goals that he saved that was not expected, right? Which is crazy. So and of course they sweep the Carolina Hurricanes. By the way, the Carolina Hurricanes have been swept in the last 3 times that they've been in the conference finals, which is crazy. So again, if you said Vegas, you're number one in the Western Conference, they should definitely go to the Stanley Cup Finals. And Florida definitely just changed that whole narrative. So let's jump over to the Florida Panthers because I am blown away. So you got points leader, look at this, Matt Tkachuk. Goals leader, Matt Tkachuk. Assist leader, Matt Tkachuk. I mean, and you have Carter Verhaeghe and a good plus or minus. I wonder why, because he's got 15 points right here. So we'll zoom in a little bit, get a little more perspective. I'll move over a little bit. All right, so we have Matt Tkachuk playing very well as well. Like I said, this is the star quality you want. Look, they played 16 games. So Vegas played 17 games in the playoffs so far. Florida's only played 16, and so there's 21 points, which is crazy. So you're thinking like he's over a point per game. He's not just over a point per game. He has take away 5 points, and now he's a point per game, right? So take away 5 assists, which is crazy that he's doing this well, and he's got a ton of time on ice. But he also is a grinder, so like 24 penalty minutes, right? Not as high as Bennett or Montour, but Bennett is just on another level. He is brutal. The cool thing about Bennett, while he is a jerk and he plays really rough game, he is also putting up points, 11 points, 15 games. So he's in the penalty box a lot. But he's also a positive asset on the even strength with 7 points. So again, this is really where the distribution on the if you look at the Vegas Golden Knights, if we go to distribution of points, I just want to show you real quick. You can see it's 18, 17, 15, 15, 14, 14, 11, right? So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 guys with 11 points or more. If you go to the Florida Panthers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you got 2 more. You got a higher distribution of points across the Vegas Golden Knights than you do with the Florida Panthers. But if you want a game breaker, Matt Tkachuk's where it's at, and that's one of the reasons he's one of the number 1 Conn Smythe winners. I think he's number 1 in betting odds for winning the Conn Smythe, which is the MVP of the playoffs. So I believe second or tied with Matt Tkachuk is Bobrovsky. And speaking of him, let's just jump over to Bobrovsky real quick. Let's go down here. That is not the points. So I want to go to goaltending right here. Goaltending. Come on. There we go. Goaltending. Okay. So you had Alex Lyon starting out, and then he had one win, 2 losses, and then they're like, we're gonna put Bobrovsky in. Let's get him out here, and because Alex Lyon got pulled in the third game. He got pulled in the 3rd game, and Bobrovsky took over. And look at 11 wins, 2 losses. Florida has their last loss was in the 2nd round against Toronto, Game 4. That was their last loss. And the loss before that was in the 1st round against Boston, which is crazy, man. It's so crazy. Look at this. And actually, I do want to do Bobrovsky is playing so well, a .935. But I actually want to jump over to a full breakdown of stats, just so you can see with the goalies. So you can go goals against average, right? You can see right here, Aiden Hill with goals against average, so 2.07, and then Sergei Bobrovsky 2.21. So Aiden Hill has actually been playing better than Bobrovsky in that sense, just on that stat right there. And you go to save percentage, the top 2, Aiden Hill, .937, Bobrovsky, .935. So again, Aiden Hill is playing better, but Bobrovsky is currently in the Conn Smythe conversation. Aiden Hill is not. So that is something that is interesting for debate. But Bobrovsky has played more games than Aiden Hill, I believe. we jump over to let's go over to Vegas Golden Knights. So we got games played, right? So 11. So he's only started 9, but he's played in 11. And Bobrovsky has played in 14. So that is a little bit askew. So Bobrovsky does have a couple more games. And another reason why his goals saved above expected is higher than Aiden Hill's because he has played more time. So again, I want to jump over to these stats just so you can see kind of why it's such a big deal. You got Matchuk is in second in points. Rope Hintz it was just wild that he got 24 points and he's out. Man, it's crazy. So Matchuk is there, but if you keep going down, you have Eichel is in 5th, and then Marchessault is in 8th. So you can see there is a little bit more better distribution of points because you have a Vegas Golden Knight here, and here. And then you only have 2 in the top 10 for points, right? Again, going to goals, look at Leon Draisaitl, 13, which is wild. Carlson's playing very well. Matchuk, Marchessault, Chandler Stevenson right there. Sam Reinhart's also putting up goals. 7 goals is nothing to scratch at. I mean, nothing to just blow away. It's I'm losing my edge there. So, but I just want to go over how crazy this whole breakdown is of how these two guys got here. Let me know what your thoughts are on who you think is going to win. In my opinion, I am rooting for Vegas, but I think Florida will win. I think it's Florida in 6, in my opinion. Florida has just been playing so well. I am very impressed with them, but I want Vegas to win. My wife and I love going to Vegas. It's one of our favorite places. And so I am just like, hey, like I just recognize with a talent when you have a game breaker like Chuck, you have a hot goalie like Bobrovsky. A lot of people are comparing the Florida Panthers to the 2012 LA Kings, where they wrote a hot goalie in Jonathan Quick, which ironically is on the Vegas Golden Knights as the backup goalie. So the last time we saw a hot goalie like this was Jonathan Quick, and he is now playing on the opposing team who has a hot goalie. So let me know what your thoughts are. Appreciate it. Love you, and catch you soon.